Hi, I am RAUL ROA ESTILISTA.
I did a bob cut with a Bixie effect in the video uploaded weeks ago. Now, we are going to do a color technique, working on red highlights. To do this, I'll use L'Oreal's Majicontrast, and work the base into the back with 4:0, a medium natural chestnut. Also, I'll be working with a 1:0 black, on the top front for more contrast. Also, I will section the hair for better control. On the left side, I'll use this section, which will handle on the back, as shown in the figure. I'll section the top and the right side. Behind the camera, I advance the work, sectioning the first 3 locks, at the nape of the neck, horizontally and in full color. This means that the wick is not woven, but that it is taken completely, and L'Oreal's Majicontrast is applied, with 30 volumes. We will section our 4th, and last lock in this area of the nape, horizontally and in full color, where we will apply Majicontrast to the band, as I always explain, to create 2 situations. First, better adherence of the lock to the thermal band, and the another, which helps me clarify, much better due to product saturation. We are working with Majicontrast with 30 volumes, which is a super lightener, which we can also find in other brands, and it will lighten my hair and, at the same time, it will deposit pigment in the wick. Now, we're going to work on the right side. I also separate the wicks horizontally. I always explain in my videos that when we work the wicks horizontally, it is best to weave them. But since it is a very special assembly, designed for this type of cut, what I want is more contrast, and, since I am not working with bleaching, but with a super lightener, well, I am not going to risk it, and I am going to achieve a very good clarification. Now we are going to see the beautiful contrast of this red with the dark tones that we are going to apply. We section the next wick to lighten, the same way horizontally, just below the section division, because I want it to show. But I also don't want it to be too obvious. Well, as we can also see, during the course of the video, my client is having trouble staying awake. It's not like he couldn't sleep or anything. She told me that when they touch her hair, well, she automatically relaxes, and that happens a lot, and obviously they get so relaxed that they start to fall asleep. Now, we will go back to the back, and we will continue to work the top, back of the head, but we will change the direction of sectioning the wick, which will be vertical, but also guided by the natural fall of the hair, as by the curvature of the skull in this area. My client has a growth of 4 months, where we can see her natural base, which is a 6:0 dark blonde, with cosmetic residue at a height of 8:0. And some wicks that will help to enrich the color montage. Since what you want is to create a high contrast, the ideal is not to section the highlights too close to each other. Instead, the wicks should be further apart, and they should be thick too. Mixing Majicontrast with 30 volumes, you will have a good lightening power. However, with increased oxygenation, the pigments develop a bit faster. Therefore, you must prepare the mixture little by little. In this way, you will maintain the power of clarification, and the fixation of the pigments, in each of the wicks that you select, and on which you apply the product. We continue working on the right side, with a more diagonal arrangement of the wick. This will allow you to obtain a better finish that is not so vertical, since it is much more classic. The saturation of the product on the wick is also very important, because a very good lightening depends on it, and a very good deposit of pigment in the hair. The recommendation for the last wick of this section is to take a thin wick, so that it is not so marked, since most people have less hair density in this area. If it is too thick, it can be too flashy. The idea is to create a high contrast, but still look nice. Then we continue with the upper part, where we will section the wicks diagonally. The diagonal section should have a direction towards where your client combs the hair, so that the highlights are more defined. In addition to Majicontrast, you can also use similar products from other brands, such as Magma by Wella, Igora fashioned by Schwarzkopf or Contrasti by Alphaparf. The thermal strips we use are also called thermal paper. It is known as papel, pellon, yumbalo or superlon, and you can find them in hairdressing supply stores. Plus, it's the same stuff they wrap around appliances, and they also use it to put under carpeting and laminate hardwood floors. You can go to a store like Home Center, a hardware store, or a plastic store and buy about 2 meters, which you will then cut into strips, 11 centimeters wide, by 60 centimeters long, or whatever length you prefer. If you can't get the thermal bands, you can also buy them on AliExpress, or Amazon, since they come to measure, and it is a material that is much more adjusted to your needs. These thermal bands are reusable. Wash them, let them dry, and you can use them again. They last a long time. Once the assembly of the highlights is finished, we put on the gloves to apply the 4-0 permanent dye, a medium natural chestnut, which we mix with 10 volumes. In the application, we use a fine-toothed comb to evenly distribute the product from the growth area to the ends. And we are going to apply only color 1-0 on the upper frontal part, mixed with 10 volumes. The 1-0 is the black color, and I use it because I want a bigger contrast between the red and the dark hair, which in the end will look very nice. I will not apply it to all the hair, because the black pigment is very difficult to extract, so I will only do it on that frontal strand, so that in the next session, if the client wants to lighten her hair, we won't have any problem to extract it with a discoloration. And with a single application, we will have no impediments to lightening the hair later. It is very different when a client frequently dyes black and wants to go blonde, since the solidity of the black pigment is extremely strong, and when the hair has many applications of black dye, it becomes almost impossible to lighten it. Therefore, each hair in the situation is different, and a prior diagnosis must be made. Many times the best and most recommended thing is to do a strand test, bleaching a strand, to see how much it lightens, and if the hair lightens. After making the application, we will give an exposure time of 30 minutes, so that the color is well fixed, and then we will wash the hair, starting with the darkest dye, and at the end the highlights, so we will avoid staining the red wicks.